This is episode 18 with Wesley Chapman. Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Today's episode is brought to you by Onnit. Health and fitness have become a huge priority for me over the past year. And in order to achieve the business goals that I have in front of me, my body and my mind have to be performing on all cylinders. And the company that I rely on every single day to make sure that's the case is Onnit.com. And simply put, they are producing the highest quality products in the world for optimizing your performance, whether that is in the gym or by increasing your mental stamina and focus at work. If you haven't discovered Onnit yet, head over to Onnit.com and pick up a bottle of Alpha Brain and a box of their Warrior Bars. I use Alpha Brain every single day, and it will give you a level of mental focus that you have never experienced before. And their Warrior Bars are the perfect paleo snack to keep your body fueled without those fattening carbs. So when you're ready to check out, use the discount code SELFMADE, all one word, SELFMADE, to get a 10% discount on your entire order. Welcome back, everybody. As promised in our previous interview, today we are reconnecting with Wesley Chapman from A Human Project. And in our first interview with Wesley, we had the opportunity to really sit down and learn about the unbelievable challenges that he's had throughout his life and how he's been able to turn those years of abuse into his greatest gift and how you can do the same. Well, today we wanted to circle back and talk about business, specifically how companies are coming around to the realization that you can build a business that's not just for profit, but also for purpose, and how these new hybrid business models are changing the world for the better. So today's episode, I can tell you this is going to leave you incredibly inspired. Your head is going to be filled with ideas that really could change the course of your life and your business. This is one of those shows that just keeps getting better and better as it goes on. So please help me welcome once again, Mr. Wesley Chapman. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Dillard here, and we are joined once again by our friend Wesley Chapman and previous Self-Made Man podcast guest. Wesley, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
So a couple of episodes ago, we had you on the show to talk about A Human Project and your story and what you guys are doing to make a massive impact on people's lives around the world. And the podcast received an unbelievable amount of support, and you and I kind of synced up about that before we jumped on this podcast this morning. And I was pretty darn shocked by what came from having you on the show here. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to share the results with our guests here this morning.
Absolutely, and I just, as I told you, before, absolutely humbled and honored, and you have an amazing audience. We had a terrific day in donations. Thank you, everyone who donated, those that signed up for T-shirts. It was amazing. We track everything in our website. Where do people come from? Who's our top referrer? All that fun stuff. And the day that the show launched, MikeDillard.com, so your post for Self-Made Man was our number one referrer, and that beat out some pretty substantial media sources. One of which being a partnership that we have with Project Semicolon, which if anybody's been following the news, you've seen that. They've been on the homepage of Fox News, they've been on the homepage of ABC, the Today Show, just all kinds of things. And this podcast that we launched became the top referrer to our website, which was phenomenal, and just really showed the participation. It was in the hundreds of people who came to our site. And because of that, we had our single largest day in donations for the month of July. So it was phenomenal. We sold more T-shirts. Now, our T-shirt campaign is new. We just started that less than a month ago, but we sold more T-shirts in one day because of your audience than we had the entire time the T-shirt campaign's been live. So just in the monetary concept, it was absolutely phenomenal. And then in the personal side, it was very rewarding. There were several dozen emails that came in, messages from our site, personal Facebook messages on my personal page, our page as far as the Human Projects page, and the messages were amazing. Some of them were the traditional, we love what you're doing, keep it up, but the powerful emails were the people who opened up to us, the adults who opened up and said that they had had some form of abuse in their life, and in that abuse, they had not shared it, hadn't done anything, and they felt very trapped, and they were kind of having a life of victimization. And now they felt inspired that they could change their lives. And I've had correspondence with these types of messages and back and forth with your audience, and they're taking the steps. They're going through my adult program. They're talking about different things. We had individuals who have gone through some childhood trauma and have recovered from it and want to volunteer and set up pods in their area. So I mean, it was amazing. It was very telling. I've been on a lot of podcasts, and very bluntly said, this one had the largest impact that I can remember in quite some time. So you have an amazing audience, and I'm hoping that today in our conversation we can not only inspire, but we can give practical application and tools and ideas that the same audience can go out and impact the world in a great and fantastic way.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you guys out there in the audience for supporting the show, being a part of this mission here with Self-Made Man, and for contributing in whatever way that you did, whether it was sharing the message or making a contribution, buying a t-shirt with Wesley and a Human Project. So thank you guys so much. That's really awesome to hear. And today we are going to really talk about how do you build a for-purpose business? How do you build a business yet at the same time build one that is centered around a mission that is near and dear to your heart, that is really designed to serve and uplift humanity as a whole? And so I can't think of a better person to bring onto the show to discuss that than you, Wesley, because you've gone the traditional entrepreneur route, and now you're building, your for-purpose business. And so I would love any wisdom and how-to, pointers that you can share with the listeners today, because I know that there are a ton of entrepreneurs out there that this is going to spark ideas for and inspire, and it could really create a huge ripple effect in the coming years. So thank you.
No, it's an honor. I don't get to talk about this a lot because people do get wrapped up in the mission, and that's exactly what we want. But I do feel like you, that there are so many people who want to make a difference, but they don't know how. And I was definitely one of those a few years ago. So this will be fun. And one of the things that I want everyone to realize is that even if you don't want to start a quote unquote nonprofit, and I did use air quotes there, is your business now. The passion that you have right now can be retooled and repurposed to do both. So I don't want people just to instantly turn this off and be like, well, I'm not interested in starting a nonprofit. I'm busy creating my how-to this, or I'm busy creating my, service business here. We need to really realize that the power that entrepreneurialism gives us, not just to create freedom in our own lives, whether it's time, money, whatever, but to really create a movement and freedom for those that don't have the same type of opportunities as we have in this country, as you have in your community, whatever it may be. So don't just tune out if you're saying, oh, I don't want to start a nonprofit, because we're going to talk about how your business itself can actually create momentum and have a purpose.
Jump right in, brother. The stage is yours. And, I would probably say that it might be a good place to start with some existing examples that people have heard of before that are really using this philosophy.
Yeah, the philosophy is not new. I mean, Tom's Shoes is a perfect example that so many people point to. Sevenly, which is a t-shirt company that basically $7 every t-shirt you buy goes to a nonprofit or to a movement, and so the concept itself is not new, but it's been this radical idea that we as business owners giving, and it's not just about like, okay, you make $1 million and then you give 10% to charity. That's not what this is about. This is about literally implanting in your business model this concept of giving back. Take Tom's Shoes. In his business model is you buy a pair of shoes, and another pair of shoes is donated to a child in need. And again, when you look at this and I'm going to say some things that that may come across as I don't know, not disheartening, but rude, or maybe without caution. But I'm going to talk about it in a business sense. Is that when we think about that, our minds go, wow, the concept of somebody giving a pair of shoes away just because I bought a pair of shoes, that's amazing. And it is. But when you think about it in business, we're always looking to stand out. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, we want to be noticed. We want our company to be noticed, our brand to be noticed. So, maybe we create something funny like a viral video, or we use, sex to sell, or we use radical concepts or whatever. We're doing something. Tom Shoes came up with a brilliant idea where they said, wait a minute, we can use the inherent part of humanity, which is wanting to help. We can use that to build a business and to build a very profitable and very strong business. And they turned that into not just for them, but also for the world to see that we don't need to necessarily do crazy, funny, weird things or whatever. We can just do very simple things that impact the world. And it's part of the business plan. Tom's Shoes isn't losing any money because they're giving away a shoe to, a child in need. And again, that doesn't discredit what they've done and the movement and what's behind it. But the actual marketing and the brilliance of the business plan, they're not losing any money. Sevenly is not losing any money on T-shirt. It's built into the model. It's built into the costs, all the different things that you sit down and you put together in your business. It's just built into it. And so it's part of the marketing. It's the concept. I mean, you look at the radical impact that those two companies have made, and there's so many more. I mean, I'm just using two examples, but there's so many more that are starting to pop up. And then you take, and you look at that and you see what are the effects and how can that grow and what can happen. And there's also, there is this fine line that has to be drawn and has to be very, very well understood, is that Tom Shoes did that under two principles. Number one, just the entire story and how it happened and how it started. There was a real heart there. There was a realism, a real humanity there. And then they saw the business opportunity, they built it to a plan. And, now I don't even know what they're valued, but it's something ridiculous. But now you had a company like Skechers who came in and said, oh, look at this. This is a great business thing. We'll just copy it exactly. And they started Bob Shoes. And it's a blatant copy of Tom Shoes. It's not done in the same intention. It's done purely as a marketing ploy, and it's not nearly as successful. So as Gary Vaynerchuk says, and so many others, but Gary's my buddy, so I love to use him as the credit for this quote, is that marketers ruin everything. And so we have to draw this fine line that just because it's a great marketing tool, as just described, we still have to be doing something that's on purpose and that's in our heart, which leads to the question of what's in your heart. What are you passionate about? What do you wish to see different in this world? Is it hunger in the United States? Is it poverty in a third world country? Is it cancer? What is it? What drives you? What personal experience really makes you sit up and take notice? I have a lot of different people who come to me that own businesses, and the first thing I'll tell them is, well, look at where you're donating your money to now. Is that something that really resonates with you? Or are you doing that because it's a tax benefit? Are you doing that because they're your friend? I mean, what are you doing now to make an impact? And maybe there's something inside of that. And if there's not, then, get more personal. What's in your life that could alter, your energy? Because I'll tell you, getting up every morning, and again, we'll stick with the Tom Shoes, and I'm totally making judgments here because I don't know, but getting up every morning and thinking about selling shoes may not be the most exciting thing. At some point, maybe it was, and maybe it's something that, you look at and you say, oh yeah, I could do this. And then you get 15 years into it and it's like, ugh, does Blake like selling shoes every single day of his life? The founder of Tom Shoes? I don't know him, but let's just hypothetically say 10 years into it, it's not as exciting anymore. But is it exciting that every single day you get to see or hear or be connected with somebody who didn't have shoes and see how that small thing changed their life? Yes, that'll never get old. That'll never, ever, ever get old. So this for-purpose concept of implanting into your business can actually be something that, gives you this newfound energy every single day. It re-energizes you. And so if maybe you've been in business for 10 years and it's like, it's just not, it's not filling the kettle anymore. It's not making me want to get up. This can actually be that piece for you personally as an entrepreneur. So starting there is what's so critical and so important, because that, just like your bug to start your company and how, you started seeing people around you do things and everything, this can literally light your fire and give you something that's so much greater than fill in the blank, selling shoes, building websites, whatever it is. But the caveat is that don't use the Bob shoe mentality of just copying it to copy it. It's really got to be something inside of you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I believe it has to be inspired by a personal experience of some kind that has had a dramatic impact on you emotionally to really come through authentically and to make you want to integrate a social cause, if you will, into your business model. And a great example of that is myself right now. I've become good friends with Scott Harrison from Charity Water. I'm going to be up at their office in New York this week for a few days. And one of the things that he and I have been discussing are, the launch of my hydroponics business, which is obviously, designed to feed the world in a much healthier way, coming out next year. And so one of the questions I had for him was, is there a way that we can integrate a social cause that is food related, into the business? And while the opportunity is there, clearly right now, the food thing is not personal to me. It needs to become much more intimate. So if we were to ever seriously consider doing that, I would have to go down probably with him to Africa and really experience hunger and see that to really have it come from the right place. Because if not, then it's just it's a marketing gimmick at that point, like Bob's, and it's not going to work. So I totally appreciate where you're coming from on that, and I agree wholeheartedly with you that it has to be real and visceral for you in order to really translate, to the market. So,
well, and you're a father, correct?
Right.
I mean, okay, so here's a statistic for you: is that 1 in 5 children in the United States of Grand America go hungry every single day. I mean, just right here in our own country, and totally. I'm just saying, like, just something to just kind of think about is that here in the United States, and not just, I don't know, not just where people think, not just in the middle of the Bronx, or not just in, North Dakota, or not just in downtown LA, and they're all over the place, and they have different circumstances. And I've met children who are going to public school and are homeless, and nobody in their school knows. I mean, it's right here. So again, but it has to be personal for you, and it has to make something that makes sense for you and for what you're trying to accomplish. And you're exactly right. And I love Scott, and I love, Charity Water and all of the things that the impact that's happened there. But there are some things that lock us as, I don't want to say good people. I don't know the right word, but people who have this concept of making a difference in the world. And you become an entrepreneur, and you come into wealth, you come into success, and then the next stage, it just happens. I've been around enough, amazing people, and I'm sure you have as well, and audience members, is that there's this cycle in our development as entrepreneurs. Some of us are lucky enough to get this, shooken into us earlier in life, but for the most part, we go through this cycle of, I want to make a difference in my life, for whatever reason. And there's nothing wrong with that. So you go out there and you hustle and you get everything done and you create this business. And if you really stay on point and you stay focused and you've got a decent idea, I don't even think you need a great idea. You just need a decent idea, and you're focused on it, you're going to make some money. And then you make that money. And then that's when all of a sudden, everything that you thought was going to be accomplished by making that money, some elements of it happen, but deep down inside, you don't have that fulfillment. You don't really have that like deep-seated, I'm done. I've done something. This is awesome, which is why as entrepreneurs, we continue to go out and make more and more and more money. But something happens in the cycle where you have this moment where you've made a significant amount of money or you've had success, and then you stop and say, wait, what more can I do with my money? What more can I do with my connections? What more can I do with these things? And at that point, this is where it becomes crucial, because what we've seen historically is that 80% of entrepreneurs at this point say, I will donate to a cause, or one of my good buddies runs a charity, so maybe I'll just help him out. And that's great. And I still think that needs to happen. But we need to have something that's instead of it being an 80-20, and the 20% is somebody like a Tom Shoes, somebody like Blake who says, wait a minute, I can take entrepreneur success and impact the world. We need to flip that as entrepreneurs. Big corporations aren't going to do it. We as the heart and soul of the business community need to do it. And that is that we need to be in the position of like, okay, just like you're starting this new venture, when you're doing it, how is it going to impact not only your life and not only the industry that you're trying to impact, but how do you implant that into making a difference in the world? And the reason that has to happen is because of the psychology of nonprofits. And this was my biggest thing when I started, this venture, a human project, is that there's a reason it's not a humanproject.org. Last night I got a question. I was at a networking deal, and last night I got a question. They said, "Wait a minute, your website is .com. I thought you were a nonprofit. You should be .org." And I had a really lengthy conversation about my philosophy and my personal concept of, nonprofits. And look, I think that what nonprofits do is amazing. I love it. I think how they think and how they run their businesses and how the community treats them is absolutely asinine. It's just, there's so much we could talk about there, and we will. But the point of what I'm saying is the way that this is going to change, the way that the concept of giving and nonprofit and changing the world it has to change, is we have to think of it as a profitable enterprise. Changing the world is incredibly profitable, not just in the human collateral of, changing one human's life so they can go out and make it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking like legitimate business philosophy. It is incredibly profitable for us to make an impact in the world, because the more people that can be at a functional state of existence, the more money is going to be exchanged through products, goods, and services. And it's just mathematics. The more people that we have that are down and out, who are hungry and don't have fresh water and are being abused and don't have opportunities, the less, the less money is being circulated around a state, around, a country. It's just the economics. And so as an entrepreneur who wants to make more money, it's amazing to go out and impact the world, not just for it feels warm and fuzzy stuff, but we need to start looking this as the greatest business opportunity that's ever existed on the planet Earth. And that shakes people a little bit, because it hits the core foundational concept and the problem with nonprofits, which if you study the whole existence of nonprofits and where they came from, it comes all the way back to Plymouth Rock and the whole religious thing of the relationship with money. And that's the root of the problem as to why nonprofits have such a hard time making true impact in the world. Now, they make impact. Charity Water has made an impact. Pencils of Promise has made an impact. Human Project is making an impact. Make-A-Wish Foundation has made an impact and continues to. But we're not making near the impact that, say, WordPress has made on the marketplace. And that is what has to drastically change, because it's not just the world is, doomed and everything, fire and brimstone. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if we really want to see, the profits of businesses go through the roof, if we really want to see the concept of entrepreneurialism take off, if we really want to see the world change, then we have to make that profitable. I hope that makes sense.
No, agreed. And I can't help but think about my the street that I live on here in downtown Austin. And I don't know exactly which organization they're with, but every week for a year or two now, there have been people in their 20s, age-wise, down on 2nd Street here, wearing red T-shirts, holding a clipboard, trying to flag people down to talk about some kind of cause that they're involved with. And it's kind of become a joke for people who live here, because we walk down these streets past them every single day, and every single day they try and flag us down. And all I want to do is go say to them, like, hey, I'm really glad that you're wanting to, support whatever cause that you're pursuing and make a difference in other people's lives or whatever it may be. But I'm like, do you think that standing here trying to badger strangers who are going about their day and who have their focus and attention on something else is the most efficient way to make that impact? And rather than going out and, maybe starting a business around it or building a business around something completely different that is extremely profitable, that makes millions of dollars, that you can then go, push towards this social agenda that you have. And that's what I want to say to them in my head. But I know that it's, I'm just opening up a bag of worms that it's not going to turn out well, most likely. But I think that that's an example that you're trying to reveal here, which is that And we talked about this with Richard Branson extensively for hours at Necker 2 years ago, with his Virgin Unite program. He was,
Right.
We're talking to the head of Virgin Unite, and she's an amazing woman. And she's been there, I think, for about 10 years now. And, they're trying to come up with unique and creative ideas to raise funds, do fundraisers or whatever it may be. And you're surrounded by 30 entrepreneurs, and every single one of us was like, we hate the word fundraiser, and it's the weakest, most ineffective place that you could possibly come from. And so we spent the next probably 4 or 5 hours with Richard and her saying, is there a way that you can sell something, make something, build a business around this rather than having to go around with your hand out asking for donations all of the time, because that's a reactive position. It's not a proactive one. And so I don't know if that resonates at all with what you're saying or if it supports that, but that's the conclusion that all of us came to, that if you can integrate a profitable business model that will support ultimately your ultimate cause, your ability to magnify your impact is 10x.
Exactly. And then what that does is 10x in the sense of now you have more money. I mean, we have this like delusion and this relationship with money that just has to change as a society. It's number one, it's a status. For some reason we think that if one person has 10 million and another person only has 100,000, the one with 10 million is somehow a better person. And I know that people will debate that, but really on a psychological level, that is something that we have a problem with in this world. And secondarily, we look at money as a it's only good if it's if it's used in, when we're talking about in this like nonprofit ways, if it's used for XYZ. For example, I will never forget. So going back to the interview we did a couple weeks ago and talking about how I started Human Project and all this stuff, my first phone call was to the founder of Make-A-Wish Foundation, 10 o'clock at night. And I dial up Frank, and he and I are good friends. We've known each other for 5-6 years now. And I just said, Frank, here's the story. Here's what we're doing. We talked on the phone collectively over 2 days for like 8 hours, something ridiculous. And his first piece of advice, after I told him the story, what I wanted to do, everything, his first piece of advice, this is coming from one of the largest nonprofits, in the United States, at least one of the most impactful and brand-wise. And he came to me and he said, Wes, the number one mistake that I made and so many nonprofits make, and now he consults so many nonprofits around the world, but he said is the way that you see money inside of your nonprofit. And I said, okay, I'm all ears, because I wasn't a big, huge fan of nonprofit organizational business structure in the first place, so I was going to do it differently to begin with. And he said, Wes, whatever your private value, market value is, so meaning if I went out and got a job or if I started a business, whatever I would pay myself is the exact same wage that I deserve and should be paid for running this nonprofit organization, if not more. And that really took me back, and he went into a conversation about it being one of the greatest mistakes that he made in his life was how he was compensated and how he viewed money and how donors viewed money in his organization. So right then and there, both on my personal gut and then on his recommendation, I wrote into the business plan that not only will, I be compensated fairly, but anyone who comes on board. And for the pure logic is this, and I always use Coca-Cola because I pick on them and, they're a big company, they can take it, is that if Coca-Cola can pay their marketing executive $500,000 a year and some kind of percentage increase based on what they're able to do for the bottom line of Coca-Cola in the stock market, right? So if they do some marketing and do all this stuff and they give a 2% bump in Coca-Cola's overall, performance for that quarter, they're going to get some substantial bonus, right? So $500,000, and let's say they're going to get another 200, 300,000 in bonuses. Coca-Cola, whether you believe it or not, whether it matters or not, is not the best thing to put in your body. I've seen what it does. I've seen what it does to oil stains on concrete. Okay, enough said. Right. So if that company, which is sharing a message of enjoy life, if they're able to pay somebody $500,000 who's bright, who's smart, who's intelligent, who's dedicated their lives to the industry of marketing and psychology and understanding humans and all this stuff, and they can make an impactful difference in Coca-Cola's bottom line and bring Coca-Cola another $100 million every year, why would I not want that same person running my marketing department at a human project? I mean, it would be asinine to think that I shouldn't have the same opportunity. Somebody who's that bright, who's that intelligent, who has that much insight in the way that we communicate, the way that messaging is done, so that we can share our message, we can, impact the movement. Why would I not want that same exact person in my organization? And there's not an organization on the planet that wouldn't say, "Oh, I'd love that, but I can't afford it." That's the first thing. I've had this conversation with some high-profile nonprofit leaders. "Oh, that would be epic, but we just can't afford that, and our donors would never go for that." That is so rudimentarily, ridiculous. I can't even explain it. But going back, to what you just said and about your people on the street and going back to the whole thing of like entrepreneurs need to implant these philosophies into their business models, is that 25.4% of Americans over the age of 16 years old, it's a pretty good number, will volunteer for a nonprofit. When that gets into their late 20s, it drops down to something like 11%. When it gets into the 40s, it's like down to 8%. Why? Because it's ineffective. That same kid that's out there in the red shirt asking you to, he's energetic right now. It's him against the world, right?
What do you call it? There's a term for it. Something enthusiasm,
yeah,
it was stupid enthusiasm. I don't remember, but yeah,
but
lots
they're
of
out
enthusiasm, little brains.
Exactly. And they're out there and they're doing their thing. And then guess what? You're doing exactly what you're trained to do, I guess you could say, is that you're ignoring it because it's just rhetoric. It's just noise. And they could be literally saving a child's life that lives next door to you. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. But the problem is the way that they're doing it. And so here they are, they're excited, they're energetic, and then they're not getting results. So what happens when a human being doesn't see results in anything, in a relationship, in business, in a workout regimen? You quit doing it. You stop doing it. So now you have this problem. Now you have this problem that exists in nonprofits where you have a lot of young, energetic people who want to come in, they're young, they're hungry, but guess what? They lack experience. And there's nothing wrong with being young, except for the fact that we don't have any freaking experience. And so now you're taking a bunch of enthusiastic, energetic people trying to make a difference in the world. And yeah, they'll go and they'll do crazy things. They'll go and, rescue kids out of houses, and they'll go and, rescue little girls in Taiwan. They'll do some crazy things that us with experience might not think about doing. But at the same time, they don't have the experience to grow something on a scale that can be massive. And just thinking about how much money, I think we're almost an $11 trillion country now, right? Here in the United States, something like that. It's our gross national product. The individual giving for 2012, which, it takes them a few years to catch up to getting all this data out there for us. The individual giving in this country was $228 billion. Now, individual giving comes from, that's also, they clump in, business stuff and all that fun stuff. $228 billion. There are companies worth more than that in this country. There are we as a society are doing so little to make an impact in the world. It's ridiculous. But as business, we're doing so much to make an impact in, a product's existence or a convenience factor. So all we have to do is marry the two. And by doing that, by creating that, and by saying we have an 11 trillion, dollar gross product deal, whatever, if we could just bump that, and so that 10%, let's just use the biblical 10%, which I still don't know where that is in the Bible, but it's supposedly there because that's the universal tithing percent, right?
Right.
So 10% of 11 trillion. Now we're starting to see something. Now we've got money. Now we've got something. What if it was 20%? And what if it was built in to every, entrepreneurial startup, is that I'm going to take my love and my passion for saving sea life and put it into my business. It's going to make sense. It's going to be purpose-driven. It's going to be authentic. It's going to be real. Let me marry the two. Let me put it into my marketing. Let me do this the right way. And now all of a sudden, your beloved humpback whale or whatever it may be, you're actually able to have resources monetarily to go and make a difference. And maybe it's not you personally. Maybe you find the right charity that's running it just the right way. And the thing that they're lacking is they're out, saving the whales and doing what they need, but they need a really good, legislator or something to go to Washington and to, hammer down new laws. I don't know, whatever it is, but they can't afford it. Now your business can make that happen. And now they can make, it just starts creating this cycle that it's not a 10, I'm not talking about donation, because donation just in its pure concept will always be the least amount of money somebody can give, but at the same time feeling good, right? So it could be like, well, I'm a multimillionaire, but I really want to feel good, so I'll donate $100 a month to this charity. Okay, that's great. Thank you. But what if that multimillionaire was a multimillionaire because of their business, and they were able to donate multi-millions and not just feel good, but make a profit in doing it? That's the evolutional cycle that we have to get into as a society. And then, just preaching a little bit longer is that I believe once we conquer that, because I know we will, because it's profitable. And that's why I have extreme hope, is that it's incredibly profitable, and I'm not being disheartened. I think it's awesome. Let's make money saving the world. No problem with it. When that happens, our relationship with money will have a completely different feel. And then finally, we can close the final chapter, minus warp speed, in the Star Trek trilogy, is that we don't have money in the way that we see it. That's not our, that's not the currency that we rule with. And because as soon as we fix this relationship that we have with money as a society and see it as just an avenue, just a medium, then we're not going to be as dependent on it. This is just me thinking, my thought process. We're not going to be as dependent on it. We're not going to be as hungry to obtain it in the way that we have. And thus it's not going to control us as much. And we're going to really be able to be human beings on this planet, which is to be able to help each other grow, explore, and, explore the rest of the world. Just a few weeks ago, we found a planet that's only like 14 million miles away or something like that. That's a clone of the Earth. Like, I'm all ready to go down a plane and go see that thing. I don't know. So it's just, that's the core of humanity, is exploration and helping people and doing this. This money thing was just thrown on top of us for the pure essence of survival, not because it's something that's, written into our DNA code. But we have to change this relationship, and it starts with entrepreneurs creating a for-purpose model inside of their business and really, truly giving back to the world.
Very cool. So I can imagine that there's a lot of people listening to this right now who are entrepreneurs who are fired up, and, really this idea really resonates with them. They're coming up with ideas right now in their head on how they could potentially do something like this with their business. Are there any resources, books, places to go where they can learn the inside processes and hints and, secrets, lessons learned, if you will, when it comes to actually implementing something like this?
I think that first and foremost, there are a lot. I mean, Adam Braun, who's a good friend of mine, wrote a book. He's the founder of Pencils of Promise. He wrote a book, I believe it's called Pencils of Promise. And it kind of outlines like how to start. It's called the Promise of a Pencil, excuse me. It outlines how to start and how to, just kind of look at this for-purpose model a little differently, and the steps to creating an actual business that is just focused on that. So that's one, but you can implant those same ideas into your existing deal. But really, it comes down to just, there's TED Talks out there. I'm not the only one talking about this. Dan, I can't remember his last name. Dan, I'm going to slaughter. It's Dan Pallotta, Pallotta. He gives an amazing TED Talk on what's wrong with charities, and he talks about the root of nonprofits. He talks about since 1972, which I just kind of talked about, our gross national product has just shot through the roof, but our giving has remained the same. Like, our percentage of giving has not increased, even though our profits have gone through the roof, which is, again, going back to the psychology of the concept of donation. Second I say donation, you're like, oh yeah, I'll give a little just so you'll back off and get the clipboard out of my face. But as an entrepreneur, you really just have to go off of your gut on this one, because there's not a ton. There's a lot of different pieces you can piece together. And that was my biggest frustration when I started the Human Project, is there just wasn't a ton of information out there of people implementing this. I tried to surround myself with guys like Dan and Adam and others that are doing something similar. But even at the same time, how do you turn, like, let's take Pencils of Promise. There is a long-term play here, and I'm sure, Pencils of Promise is thinking about this, but the core essence of for purpose means that your product, service, whatever, is creating a profit that you can then do something with purpose with, right? So if you think about this, like, we'll pick on wells in Africa. If you think about this, in order for Charity Water to go over and dig a well and put it in Africa and give clean water to a village that's never had clean water in their entire history, there's really no secondary revenue model for that, right? Like, is that village going to bottle the water up and then sell it to the neighboring village, and then somehow a piece of those profits come back to Charity Water so they can go build another well somewhere else? Well, that doesn't work, because then that means, which village is the water supply company, which village gets the water supply company. And if you do that, then you could literally create a war where, like, one village wants to fight another village, right? Mm-hmm. So just think about it for a second, is like, how do you create profit inside of that? And I know that this is one of Charity Water's problems. And I know that, Scott has chosen not to take money from the organization, and 100% goes to the cause, which has caused massive problems in the growth of Charity Water. And that's nothing wrong. It's just what he chose, and it's amazing. I think Scott's one of the most amazing human beings on the planet. But where's the business model? And maybe I'm not in it, so I don't see it. But that's what you got to ask yourself, is that where's the business model? How are you going, if you want to just go full-fledged and say, I don't want to be an entrepreneur traditionally, I just want to go start a nonprofit, then in order to do it the right way, is that where's your profit model? And people ask me that all the time with a human project. And I say it's really simple, is the wave of the future is the internet. Whatever that's going to be, we don't know. Just today, I saw this amazing freaking technology that came out. I think it's called Page Builder, where you can literally, like, take a Photoshop file and drop it onto an internet browser, and it makes a website. Like, it sounds crazy, but I just bought their thing, and it's amazing. For $70, and you can clone any website. So we don't know what the future of web's going to be, but we know that it's going to be, connectivity on the web. That's where we're headed. Maybe even more connectivity. And so when we sat down and we mapped out this philosophy inside of a human project, the first thing I said is, if we can get the children onto the web, and if we can get them onto our web, right? So in our world, like into our site, and we become a portal for those children, how is that any different than what Facebook has done? And what's Facebook? $80 billion or whatever they make, every quarter. It's a tremendous source of revenue. So what if we could do something very similar, except our philosophy and with all of our content? So it's not a social media site. It's not a place for people just to bash each other, but it's a place for these kids to learn and execute ideas and create and get content and become a portal to the rest of their lives. So it's basically, it's their university. What if we build something like that? And then what if we take it to the next? What if we do all this? What is that worth in 5-10 years when we have let's say 1 million youth? Well, no, I'm going to put out there what I want. When we have 10 million youth using it every single day.
So I have an idea, and I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to email Scott as soon as we get off the show here, because I can't imagine that he hasn't thought of this already, or someone on the team hasn't thought of this already. But here's the perfect example. Why isn't there a brand of bottled Charity Water that I could buy at the store?
There you go. Right?
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, bottled water. Why isn't there a Charity Water bottle that I can go buy, where a percentage of the revenue that generates obviously goes to the social cause?
Exactly. And building wells in Africa. And that's, it's a brilliant idea, and you're right. But here's the caveat to that. And again, I don't know. You'll know Scott, and you guys will have this conversation. But we get so close to things sometimes in entrepreneurs that the simplest of solutions is evades us because of just our. I've had that happen in my entire career, and it's definitely happened with a human project. And I'll sit down with somebody, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that would change everything. So maybe, but exactly. And so if you're starting this, if you're just starting, use this energy and this excitement to find that thing. So going, human project. This was the first night, the very first night. And I don't know if we said in the story, but I didn't sleep for 3 days. When I decided to do this, I literally did not sleep for 3 days as I was mapping this thing out. And in my mind, the profitability thing went instantly. I'm like, wait a minute. If I've got 10 million youth, and I still remember this as clear as day. And when I present on stage, I do all the animation, but like I'm writing all this stuff on the board, and I'm getting all excited, and then I whip out my calculator, and I'm like, okay, 10 million, let's say they spend an hour a week on the website. That's 10 million hour. Just like all this stuff. What does that translate to? Well, an NFL banner, a freaking banner in the NFL, in a stadium in the NFL. Well, let's do MLS because I know that specifically, is a $400,000 commitment for a company to have a little banner that when you're sitting in the average seat of a stadium looks like the size of your pinky. To have that inside of a stadium in for, let's say, a mid-sized team, not LA Galaxy, but a mid-sized team, is a $400,000 commitment to a business for a year. I'm sorry, but I've been in marketing and branding, and yes, it's important. You're not getting $400,000 return off of just that banner. Now, collectively and everything else you're doing, it's definitely worth it. So what is it worth for a business? We'll go back to doing something nice for Coca-Cola, right? Like, what is it worth for Coca-Cola to be in front of 14 to 17-year-olds for an hour a week in an environment where they feel that it's their hero? Like, it's hero mentality. What is it worth for Coca-Cola to have their brand positioned to a child like that? Name the number, right? Mm-hmm. Name the number for them, because if they can get, a third, a tenth, a 1%, a 0.004% of 10 million kids drinking Coca-Cola for the rest of their lives, it's a huge win for them. And now as we've progressed, we found that it's not an hour that these kids spend in our website. It's 10 to 15 hours a week. So now, listen, I'm like all giddy. I'm super excited. I'm like, I'm going to turn this into an $800 million business off of doing something amazing. And I've got $800 million to go out and do what I want to do, which is impact 25 million lives. So now it's not, I can't afford that guy. It's, well, let's pay him a little extra to convince him that this is where he needs to work. And that mentality and that shift has got to happen. Because people doing good things don't need to just be forced. Look, I'm not going to not drive a practical car, but we don't need to be forced to forever be driving a 1998 Honda Accord. Like, I'm sorry, like that concept has got to be. It's just got to we have to get rid of it. At the same time, it doesn't mean that somebody should be taking money from Sally in Wisconsin and driving around or flying around in a private jet. Those are the two things that have to change, is that nonprofits cannot be so freaking dependent on government grants and donations, because that really is just a different form of donation, a government grant, because that's coming from you, it's coming from your taxes, that's coming from your thing. So we can't be so dependent on that. We need to be very dependent on our own ideas, our own philosophies, which is a completely different thing. Just like you said with Charity Water. I live in Lake Arrowhead, California. So every one of you that's ever picked up a Lake Arrowhead water bottle, thank you, because you make my lake a private lake. It's an amazing, location. You keep us it's a very private community. And thanks to that, water bottle company, our lake will never not be, it'll never be a public lake. It'll always be private as long as that company's in business, which has generated billions of dollars for this area. We've got some insane homes that are parked on the lake because of it being private, and it's created a great amazing community, as well as all the things they've done. So you're right, it's a $1 billion industry that could single-handedly build every single well in Africa, like without ever asking for another penny from average Joe or Sally.
Perfect. So I think that is really the perfect transition point, because I can hear the light bulbs going off right now with everybody listening to this. It's such a powerful concept, but clearly that's going to take some time. We're talking about starting new businesses or integrating, this social cause function into existing businesses, which is, something that typically doesn't happen overnight. And this is a generational shift, really, that I think is going to take place over the next 10 to 20 years and start to gain relevance. But what can people do? What should people do in the meantime? Obviously, they can go buy products from Tom's Shoes and others that have integrated this model into their business. They can integrate this into their own business plans and future endeavors. But in the meantime, what should people do? Where should people go from here?
Yeah, and I think that's critical. I look at everything that you buy anyway, from toilet paper to coffee, and just see if there's a company out there that's practicing this principle, in legitimately practicing this principle, right? And you'll be able to tell. Just go to their website, look at what they're doing, do a little due diligence. We all love to research and we all love to think we know everything, so go and do it. Go and figure out everything about a company and just replace your average things. I mean, Starbucks is a great company. I love what Starbucks does for their employees, and they've got some really good things. Every one of their employees now gets college paid for. That's an amazing, world-changing experience for somebody who's making, $8 to $12 an hour. So maybe that's it, or maybe there's another coffee company that's doing something. But just look at everything that you're just consuming on a daily basis and see if you can replace it. Secondarily is look for nonprofits who are wanting to do this in their business but need that seed money. For example, right now I'm ruthlessly raising $25,000, which isn't a ton of money, but it's still something that we have to raise. And raising this $25,000 to rebuild our back-end system. We've proven the concept. I think I said in the first episode, we had 1,000 youth register for our program in the first night. That was great, but a $79 WordPress plugin and a bunch of other things that we did just isn't going to cut it, for this on a mass level. So we've worked with an amazing web developer, an amazing videographer, an amazing editor, and we've gotten them to donate and do everything, but we still need that seed capital of $25,000 to go out and build the back-end system. Once that system's built and you give it a couple of years, all of a sudden, as we talked about, we'll be able to go out there and sell advertising space and all this fun stuff. So here's the point is that look for businesses, whether it's Charity Water, Pencils of Promise, Human Project, Make-A-Wish, I don't care, who are not just telling and talking to you about like, oh, your donation goes to saving this or doing this or making this, but you can see in their business plan, you can actually see what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do. And they don't have this long-term dependency plan on your donation and your giving. And so that's something that we need to do because we need to support those kind of movements and those kind of nonprofits so that other nonprofits, there are big boys in the nonprofit world, from the ones that we've mentioned to United Way to Red Cross. There are big boys in the nonprofit world, just like there are big boys in the entrepreneur world. And guess what? When the little guy starts doing something that gets a little, gets the feathers ruffled and gets things happening, the big corporations and the big entities start looking at that and paying attention to it. I mean, I remember in 1996 when little companies were building websites, I sat in the rooms with executives of massive, Fortune 100 companies. They're like, we will never be on the web. That's the stupidest idea. That's dumb. And then these little startup companies like an Amazon and like, Yahoo and Google and all these things started happening, and big companies said, oh crap, we need to pay attention to it. So let's use that same philosophy here, is that the big nonprofits are like, are you kidding me? We're not going to worry about creating something and doing something. We just keep getting these tax donations and these and this and all this stuff. Like, we don't need to worry about that. Well, let's show them that they do. So look for nonprofit organizations that have this for-purpose model built into them, and let's start this ball rolling. It can happen quickly, but it's still going to take 5 to 10 years, to really see kind of an impact. And then it's probably going to take, as you said, a few generations to really implant this into our culture. But we got to start somewhere, and don't stop giving just because, now you're inspired that, nonprofits shouldn't be getting your money. They should be taking care of themselves. They still need seed capital to do that, but just look for the right ones to do it with.
Well, how can our audience send you some support for your 25K raise to help you guys, get the tech platform that you need to keep growing?
What I'll do is, because of the success we had on the last one, I will make a custom link that will be a humanproject.com/selfmademan. So humanproject.com/selfmademan. Go to that URL, and I'll have a video of me talking about what we're doing and a button right underneath that you can push. And if you're interested, let's make that happen. So I'll make it real simple for everybody. Just a humanproject.com/selfmademan.
Awesome, brother. Well, I'm excited to see what we can do to support you guys. And today's call was amazing. This is, I think, has been one of my favorite calls on the project so far, just because I love the ideas that I'm juiced with right now. So thank you so much, for coming on and sharing your experience and your expertise in this arena and your inspiration for, what we can do to not only benefit and profit ourselves, but to help make the world a better place in the process, man. I think it's an unbelievably powerful idea. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the second round.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wesley Chapman, please go support them at thehumanproject.com/self-made man if you feel inspired to do so and to give some of the value back that Wesley has given us here today. So thank you again so much, and we'll talk to you soon.